right, Victor Antonio here. By the way, we have a new program, and it's really to help you get going to close out this year and really kick into high gear for 2023. So we're calling it the 2023 Ramp Up at End of Year Challenge. And here's what we're going to do is every week, especially if you're on the mailing list, right? By the way, go to victorantonio.com if you want to get on the mailing list. What we're going to do is basically send out a weekly challenge of sorts, right? In other words, every week we're going to concentrate on something different. I always talk about the squirrel effect, right? When we used to live in Minnesota, what would happen all the time is that, there was this squirrel that was always getting the bird food, and our neighbor would try everything to keep the actual squirrel from getting the food, right? And so what would happen is no matter what my neighbor Harold tried, the squirrel still got the food. And I always told the story, and it ended with, the reason the squirrel always got the food was it was focused, right? It was always focused. No matter what it did, 24/7, 365, that squirrel wanted that food. Now notice that the squirrel's not focused on many things. It's just focused on one thing, the food, getting the food. And so what we want to do is kind of maybe every week say, okay, we want you to focus on this one thing. And so for the first week, we want you to focus in on basically what you say to yourself, basically a positive mental attitude. So what I've done is if you go down to this link right here, what I've done is I put some free videos online. Again, these are free. So you can just go to that link and the videos are free, right? So you can watch these videos. One is identifying limiting beliefs. Like, what holds us back and what's been holding us back. And the second one I think is even more interesting as we close out the year and maybe move into a potential recession, dare I say the R word. How do you stay mentally in the game? And so let's talk about this. How do you stay mentally in the game? Given everything that's going on around us, right? Again, stock market, technology companies, right? Number of layoffs are increasing rather. And again, the market seems to be very unstable. But I'm always thinking mentally stay in the game. Now, Milton Friedman, the economist, said something interesting, right? Milton Friedman said, a recession is good because it squeezes out the excess in the market. What a mindset. What Milton Friedman is saying, hey, if you're in a strong position, everybody who's in a weak position during the recession, they're going to go away. That means there's more market for you. And always keep in mind that someone's always selling, right? Someone is always selling. So that's the proper mindset. And so when we think about, for example, what we say to ourselves, I always talk about attitude drives behavior, drives your consequence, right? The ABC of selling, right? Not always be closing. Attitude will drive your behavior, will drive your consequence. So it's how do you maintain a positive attitude in this market, right? And not only in this market, how do you maintain a positive attitude in general, right? And again, I always hear this from people say, Victor, how do you stay motivated? Well, it's very hard. It's not easy. But I've learned one thing. Years ago, I read a book by Dr. Martin Seligman. Seligman talked about, came up with something called, by the way, the book is called Learned Optimism, in case you're curious, right? Learned Optimism. And learned optimism is about explaining to yourself when something bad happens, how do you explain it to yourself? All right? In other words, he called it the self-explanatory style. What do you say to yourself when confronted with adversity? Because remember that one saying, adversity reveals character. Adversity reveals character. Love that line. Because it's when you smack against adversity that it reveals who you really are. And here's what Seligman found. It was really interesting. I'm going to try to highlight this on the board and draw it out. So be very patient with me here because I can't really draw that well. So Seligman did this experiment with dogs, right? And what he did was he put a group of dogs, right? One at a time. That's a dog, by the way. I just call it dog. I told you, I can't draw. I'm an engineer by trade. So let's call this group one dog. Each dog, that's the ears right there, I guess. That's the eyeball of a dog. All right? And so what happened is, in the first phase of the experiment, Seligman put these dogs in a harness, right? That's kind of a harness. And in front of them was a little wall, just a wall, and there was a button, that's a button, in front of that wall, right? And so what Seligman did was, they would administer a small little shock, nothing to hurt the animal, but it's a small little, just like you get when you're crossing, the rug or something, a little shock. And what happened is, after a while, the dog realized that if it pressed the button right here, if it pressed the button, the little zzz would stop, right? So that was group number one. Group number 2, Seligman said, let's do the same thing, put the second group in the harness, but this time we're going to remove the button, right? We're going to remove the, so group 2, basically no button. And so they administer the shock. And after a while, what happened? They just stopped doing it, right? So after a given time, they just stopped. Phase 1 of the experiment, complete, right? Phase 1, complete. Now they went to phase 2 of the experiment. They put the dogs in the shuttle box. This is you looking into the shuttle box, front view. And there's 2 compartments, left side, right side. Here's just a small little barrier. They took the group 1 dog that had the button, right? And they put the dog, I'll just call it dog since I can't draw. They put the dog on this side, group 1. And what happened is they administered, again, a small little shock from beneath, right? And after a couple of shocks, the dog just just leaped over to the other side, right? Makes total sense. Here's where it got interesting. They then took group number 2. Now, group number 2 was the one that was being shocked. It had no button. And they administered the shock again. And what did the dog do? It just stayed there. Didn't move. Just stayed there and whimpered. I know, a sad story. I didn't come up with this, okay? And so what was interesting is that Seligman concluded that the dog in group 2 had given up. In other words, when it was in the harness, no matter what it did, it constantly got shocked. Group number 1 realized, hey, if I hit the button, I can get out of this thing, right? Group number 1 learned that it can control its destiny, if I can put it that way. Group number 2, he described, became helpless. And he called this learned helplessness. Now, this is powerful. If you really understand this concept, it's really powerful. Learned helplessness is when you're basically, I'll just say, in a harness, in a social harness, so to speak, and you feel that no matter what you do, no matter what you try, no matter how hard you work, no matter what you do in life, no matter what you commit to, no matter what this, what that, it just won't change. So you give up. That's learned helplessness, right? And that's what the dog felt. And because it felt this learned helplessness, even when all it had to do was jump over the barrier, psychologically, the dog was out of the game. It became helpless. Learned helplessness. Now, what's interesting about this, if you look around at your friends, families, colleagues, you see this behavior, right? Some people have just given up because in the past, things they've done have not worked out. And because they haven't worked out, they just, you know what, screw this. Nothing works out. No matter what I try, nothing ever works out, right? And you see this everywhere. I'm often asked a question because I came from the hood, right? And people always ask me, you know, Victor, how did you do it? And what did you do that they didn't do? What did you do? How did you get out, right? And I could never really answer the question until I came across Seligman's book, Learned Optimism, because I realized that somewhere in my mind, I was always more of an optimist, right? I was more of an optimist. And here's how he described optimism, pessimism. And this is really interesting. This is the crux of the whole book right here. So the self, and this is again, I'm going to write this out, explanatory. The self-explanatory style is essentially what you say to yourself, I'm repeating myself for effect, when things don't go right. Here's what he discovered, that if you're a pessimist, you'll think one way. If you're an optimist, you'll think a second way. He says, but there's 3 aspects of how this works. Let me go full screen. There's 3 aspects of how this works. He said, first of all, sometimes you take it personal, right? So for example, when something doesn't go well, the pessimist will say, basically, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot, right? That's what a pessimist will say. They'll make it personal. They start berating themselves. This is what they say to themselves. You know, I'm an idiot. I'm just not good at this. I suck. You know, and they just start berating themselves. Now, an optimist, when something doesn't go right, what they do is quite different. They just kind of, I'll put it this way, oops, that didn't work. Maybe I should try something else, or maybe I should work harder. Now, what can I do to get better? You know, that's kind of the mindset they have. What can I do to get better? What can I do to fix this, right? Now, the second aspect of what we say to ourselves, sometimes we berate ourselves by taking it personal, but sometimes we believe the condition is permanent. In other words, things will never change. You ever hear that in people's language? You ever hear when people talk like that? You know what? things are never going to change. So why even try? Why even try if things are never going to change, right? Now, the optimist, on the other hand, the optimist is going to say, you know, what can I do? What can I do? To make things change. What can I do differently? Notice what's happening here. There's a pattern here. The pessimist will make a statement to themselves. I'm an idiot. Things will never change. The optimist goes, oops, how can we do that differently next time? Oh, what can I do to change my situation? And the last aspect of this was pervasive. Pervasive means it's everywhere, right? And again, what an pessimist will say is, no matter what I try or where I go, things never work out. They just don't. They just simply don't work out. Where the optimist says, you know, again, what can I do to win? And what Solomon said was very powerful. It's what we say to ourselves. This is. I'm telling you, if you figure this out, if you just get this part, if you become very aware of what you say to yourself, everything will begin to change. Remember, attitude drives behavior, drives consequences. If I can fix the attitude part, that will trigger the behaviors, the activities. Once I do the activities, the outcome is the actual consequence. So next time you just slam up against something, your manager yelled at you, right? Or you got into an argument with somebody. You lost a deal last minute. You put in a lot of time to try to get that deal. You did a presentation, it didn't go well. You did a demo, you're an SDR, you did a demo. Screwed that one up, right? Again, the pessimist is just going to start berating themselves. You know, I'm just not good at this. You know, I'll never be able to learn it. It's permanent, right? Pervasive. No matter who I talk to, it seems like things never go well. But again, the optimist is over here saying, oh, all right, I know I'm good at this. I just need to figure out how to do it. Personal. I know I'm good at this. I just need to figure it out. Permanent. Well, okay, I need to just change how I do my presentation. Maybe I can go get some advice. Who can I talk to? Again, ask yourself the question. And last but not least, I know I didn't get that deal, but maybe I'll get that deal. And that's the difference in mindset. So I wanted to share this with you just to kind of maybe get your day going. But think about this. The book is called Learned Optimism. And when you get a moment, what I want you to do is, again, go to this link. And again, the stuff's on there for free. So there's no payment of any sort. So just go on there. There's the link. And every week, we're just going to be pumping out a different challenge. And again, it's just for you to kind of as a reminder. Every week, I'll just try to remind you to do something or work on some aspect of who you are or what you want to be. And just keep in mind, remember the 1% rule, right? I love the book Atomic Habits and several other books that talk about the 1%. And the way I like to describe the 1%, and I'll close out with this, and then, by the way, I'll answer any questions if you guys have any. The way I like to talk about the 1% is that in the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, which is a great book, highly recommended. One of these, he talks about the 1%. If we can improve 1% every day, if you improve 1% every day, I think the curve looks something like this. Let me just fully draw it out. Looks something like this. If you improve 1% every day, right? This is over time. This is improvement. If you improve 1% every day, I think within 70 days, you'll get 2x better. Within 223 days, I think, you'll get 10x better, right? At the end of the year, 365 days, you'll be 37x better than what you started. But the thing is, what does 1% mean? Here's what it means. 1% means this, 15 minutes per day. How did I get there? Well, think about it. There's 1,440 minutes in a day. 1% of that is 14.4. Let's just call it 15 minutes. What if you can dedicate 15 minutes a day? Just 15 minutes a day for the rest of the year and just get better. So when we send out these challenges, all we're really asking you to do is just commit maybe 15 minutes a day to these challenges and have fun with them. Again, we want you to have fun with this stuff. And again, those are free videos. And so every time I send something out, there'll be a couple of free videos just to get you mentally in the game. If you're not, if you're in the game, take you to the next level. So check it out. Check out the link. And again, hope you'll join the challenge. Hang out with us a little bit, okay? Now, any questions, by the way? Let me see. Mayor Zerki, I think I got that right, man. Greetings from Saudi Arabia, Daman City. I've been to, where did I go? I'm trying to remember the city I went to when I went to Saudi Arabia, man. It was a great visit. It was a great visit. Jeddah is where I went. Chris Stone says he's challenged. Chris Stone is my guy. He's the guy that really edits all the videos that you see online. Just a great editor slash producer. Skip Wilcox, love this, man. Thank you very much. Nestor Morales, wash hands. I don't know what that means, man, but okay. If that's your goal for the year, cool, man. Cast ahead. Again, my Chris, my dog. Apollo Russell. Dude, they actually called you Apollo, man. You got great parents. Thank you so much for this. Helps all the way. Cast ahead says again, 50 minutes of Victor Antonio videos make you 37x better in a year. Love it, man. I love that. And again, hit me up. I'll try to do these maybe once a week. Get around to doing some of these more frequently. Got some new projects I'm working on that I think you guys are going to find very cool. So we'll be making some announcements in December and January. So again, if you're not on my mailing list, go to my website, get on the mailing list. And I'm telling you, I got some cool stuff coming for 2023. Super excited about what we got coming up. But again, I want to focus right now on the challenge. Join me every week. Let's have some fun. Let's make it happen. On that note, I'm out of here. This is Victor Antonio, always reminding you, selling ain't hard when you know how. Take care.